Hello, this is a presentation to introduce you to the HPQ, which we are launching at Van Dyke this year for our current Year 9 cohort. My name's Mr. Kane. I'm Head of Media Studies at Van Dyke, but I'm also going to be the coordinator of the HPQ. So I'm going to be working with other teachers who are supervisors to the students who are taking it on, and I will be overseeing everything. So the HPQ is a short research project really for our year 9 into year 10 students, and it will be an opportunity for them to look into a particular area of study that perhaps they haven't had opportunity to look into during lesson time. They might have an interest outside of school. They might have an urge to look into something, whether it's sports related or science related or history or engineering, or something that perhaps they haven't had the opportunity to indulge in fully. It's also a way of receiving a qualification from that passion and from that interest. So the next few slides are going to talk you through the whole process, talk you through what it is, what it looks like at the end, how you're assessed on it, and what the opportunities are following on from an HPQ. The HPQ stands for Higher Project Qualification. There are other types and forms of project qualification available. There's also the EPQ, which some of you might be familiar with, and that's available to Van Dyke students in Year 12 going into Year 13. The EPQ stands for Extended Project Qualification, and that's a Level 3 qualification, and it's worth half an A level. The HPQ is a higher Level 2 qualification, and it's similar to half a GCSE. So you can be awarded half a GCSE on passing the HPQ. But really, the whole process over the course of, say, 9 months to 12 months is a process of researching and discovering more information about something that really interests you. And the beauty of the HPQ is that you are helped by a member of staff, but more or less you are in charge of what you look into. So you might have a particular interest in any area outside of school or within school. You might want to know a little bit more about it, but it really is a scaled down kind of university dissertation or a research project. So you can choose what you study, you write your investigation, you write a question that you then set about either proving or disproving. Then you piece everything together after a few months, you bring all of your evidence together, and you evaluate whether or not you have proved your statement either correct or incorrect. And most students find that they agree to a particular extent, and then through this process of their research, they find other things that are contrary, kind of counter what they first thought. But the way it's set out is a process rather than a finished product, and it allows students to work in a different way to how they might work in the classroom. It's a longer process where it's more about discovery, it's more about the whole process of researching something rather than just working to a particular end. Students can either, at the end of it, choose to write a 2,000-word report, which sounds like a lot at this stage, but there is a lot of help that goes into this. It's a long process. That's the finished product. Or students might choose to produce an artifact or a product. Now, that really is dependent on what their area of study is, but that could perhaps be a short video, it could be an animation, it could be a podcast, it could be a model that you've built. So perhaps you've looked into bridge design, or you've looked into architecture, and you actually end up making a model as a kind of proof of whatever you've looked into. Or it might be another piece of art, like a painting or a sculpture. But that's all dependent on what you've chosen to look into, and your supervisor is there to help you determine what you're likely to make, and I am there to help you determine what that might look like as the centre coordinator. So here are some examples of what students can look into, or areas of study that students have looked into in the past. So as you can see, there are 6 examples there, all spanning either science, space exploration, music, something more engineering and kind of societally based. There's something there about gaming, the gaming industry, or technology behind consoles. And then there's something a bit more ethical. The second from bottom there, zoos are cruel and should be closed down, is more of a kind of ethical debate. And then the last one there is another art-based project whereby a student might look into whether graffiti art adds to an area or ruins it, which is another artistic but also an ethical debate. So the students might choose to base their project on a kind of discussion that is a public, in the public domain, is part of public discourse, or they might choose something that's much more local. It's entirely up to them. But the supervisor and myself are there to guide them through um, whether their question is viable, whether it's ethical, and to steer them in the right direction. But these are just some examples of the sorts of things they can look into. So, in terms of why you might want to take on the HPQ, it's something that's different quite often to classroom learning. It's something that spans a much longer time frame, but it also gives you a lot more autonomy over what you learn and what you find out. And it's something that credits you for the whole process. It credits you for being an individual, for having an interest. It credits you for looking into something, and being very discerning and very critical of what you might be reading. So it's a very mature and kind of adult thing to be doing. At the end of the whole process, you're graded. You get half a GCSE, but it's graded either A star to C. And it shows a great level of independence and individualism. And you have to persevere with it. You have to be quite resilient, and it's a respected academic thing to do, and it's a mature thing to do. It also sets you apart from others. So when it comes to perhaps applying for the sixth form, either with us or elsewhere, or applying for a college, it shows that you've already done something um, lower down the school at a younger age that has kind of prepared you for later study, for further education. And it's something that you will be in charge of and that you have complete control over. So as you can see, there's a bit of a theme to my slides here. That theme is graffiti, of course. Last week we took a group of students from different years to the skate park. This was organised by myself and the council. There was a team of people down there ready to greet us, and they had reskinned the ramps at the skate park down in Parsons Close Rec, and they had whitewashed the sides of the ramps, and they gave us the opportunity to paint the ramps. And they gave us a whole afternoon to do this. So this is a great example of students learning outside the classroom, doing something completely new with a blank canvas, very little experience going into this, but they really excelled. And if you are in the area and you walk down to Parsons Rec and have a look at the skate park, have a look at the ramps, all of our work is on show. So it's quite a nice kind of visual metaphor, as it were, for the HPQ. Students start something from scratch, they look into it, they build the skills via the whole process, and they come out of it having learned something, not just the finished article, but having learned through the process. The next slide or so will show you a bit more of that from last week and a bit more of the process, and then I'll talk you through the steps of the whole HPQ and how it might look. So as you can see here, these are some of our students partaking in the graffiti down at the skate park last week. They had a rough idea of what things were going to look like and what they wanted to achieve, but the whole afternoon was a kind of process in making those visions come to life and learning as we went. This is just a very rough sketch of what they wanted to do early on, and then the finished article is on show um, down at the rec. Okay, so the whole process of the HPQ looks something like this. Firstly, you'll identify your area of interest. What would you like to investigate? Now, it might be that you're interested in the HPQ, but you're not sure. You might have a number of hobbies and you're not sure which one to take on for the HPQ. But your supervisor and myself are there to guide you with this, to help you on your way, on the journey for the HPQ. And we can narrow down your interests, we can narrow down your investigation, to make sure it's kind of doable in the time frame. You're then going to meet with me quite often, and I'm going to deliver what's called the taught skills. So, deliver how to research something properly, how to determine whether your sources are reliable, credible, etc., how to write a survey, what to do. So, there's the taught element of this. You're then going to meet with your supervisor quite regularly, and they can help you or show you the way really, and help show you where to research and where to look. You're then going to start your research, but crucially, you're going to keep a diary and a log of everything you found. So you keep anything you read, anything you look at, anything you watch has to kind of be logged somewhere so that we've got a record of what you've done. But that's going to all become part of how you're assessed. But I'll explain that in a minute. You're going to meet with your teacher quite regularly, and they're going to help you kind of form everything as it goes. So it's a kind of formative process. And then number 5 there is where you gather everything together and you present your project, you present your ideas and what you found to an audience. So everyone that's done the HPQ will have to present. Will have to present to an audience that might not know anything about the area that you've looked into. So you're going to have to present your ideas, and then there's an opportunity for a bit of a Q&A. So the audience can ask you some questions in a nice kind of supportive and calm environment. They ask you questions, and then you can answer those. And then the final part of this, which will take place towards the end of year 10. So when you kind of are wrapping up year 10 and looking to move into year 11, is when you hand in your completed reports, or you hand in your artifact to showcase your work. So that might be when you submit your painting or your model or whatever it might be. But that comes right at the end of the process. There's no need to worry about that quite yet. So to continue the theme of graffiti that I've used all throughout, the process would look something like this. For this particular example, students would figure out that they wanted to look into graffiti art and the kind of ethics and the discussion around the validity of graffiti. They would meet with their supervisor and myself to work out how they might go about it. We would then determine the best route for them in terms of how to research things, who to speak to, where to go, perhaps what to watch, etc. As part of their research. They would then go out into the field and do all of that themselves. They might speak to a few different members of staff at the school. They might watch a few documentaries, read a few books and articles on the subject. They might even visit a gallery. They might even organise a kind of an email or two from someone in the area and in that industry. That would be great. You then check in with your teacher supervisor once a week so that they can help you. They can see what you've done. They can help you with your log. They can help you with all of that. Just making sure that you're on the right track. And then step 5, after that quite long process, you would then design your presentation with your supervisor. They would sort of make sure that what you were going to present on covers everything that you've done and sort of is worthy of all the work you've put into it. You would deliver your presentation, and then a couple of months after that, you would complete your report and your artifact and submit that as well. And it's not just your report, and it's not just the presentation that's marked, it's the whole entire process. And that's what's quite unique about this thing. So here, all I've done is I've put down some examples of what the research might look like. So traditionally, you go to books and articles on this issue. That's either a published book, as it were, or it's an online article. Everything you read and use has to be documented, has to be logged. You could watch videos on YouTube. You could buy into a documentary. You could ask us for whatever we have at the school to help you on that kind of journey. You could even design a survey to ask people their opinions on graffiti art, and you could work locally. You could start by working locally. You could then go over to Milton Keynes or somewhere else. You could then even go into London if that's something that you think was reasonable and viable for your investigation. You have to log all of your research and opinions and reactions, and that would then constitute, like the biggest chunk of your research. So here I've just documented some facts about the presentation. Everyone who has undertaken the HPQ will need to present their findings. You're going to have to talk to an audience about what you've learned throughout the whole process, the sources that you've used, everything really about your project. We'll watch each other's presentations, so teachers, students, parents, carers, etc. We'll be able to watch everyone's presentations and learn about their chosen area. And then your presentation goes towards your overall mark. It constitutes part of the mark. It's not all of the mark. It's just a part. And you're going to have help designing this. It can be quite a daunting thing to do, especially if you haven't done it before. But there's such a rich learning experience that takes place when you have to present, especially to an audience that doesn't really know, might not know much about what you've looked into. So it's a really beneficial thing to do. And yes, it could be perhaps daunting, but there's so much kind of growth and learning that takes place. It's a crucial part of this whole process, really. There's a Q&A section at the end, like I've mentioned, where the audience can put their hand up and kindly ask you a question, and you can respond to their questions with what you've learned throughout the whole process. But your supervisor and myself are there to help you preempt some of the questions that might come your way, and we can do a practice of how you might deal with those. So it's not something that you need to panic about at all. So the final part of the HPQ would be to write the report or to produce the artifact. And if you're writing a report, which many students taking the HPQ do, that's the route that they go down. It's quite often the most kind of straightforward way of producing a finished product, the report. It's got to be around 2,000 words, and it needs to cover everything you found in your research, so the whole process of everything you've done, the opinions of others and summaries of things you've learned along the way, but also how your research might have changed your opinion on certain things and how actually your perception of your project might have changed throughout the process. And that's quite often the case. People come in with a preconceived idea of what they're going to find, and then through their research and discussions with other people, they end up drawing a slightly different conclusion, or they have a bit more of a balanced idea, or a more informed idea of their particular area. Your artifact, you need to make something that your supervisor and myself have agreed is similar to a 2,000 word report. So similar in terms of its length, or the duration of time that it's taken to complete it, but you've also got to write a 500 word evaluation that goes with it. So it totally depends on what your investigation is, but that's, you've got to weigh up whether or not it's similar to a 2,000 word report, and we need to determine what you would make. But you could paint something, you could create something, and you could try and persuade people that your work is worthy of respect in the local area if graffiti or something similar was your line of inquest. Okay, so you're probably wondering how it's assessed at the end, and what I've done here is I've just shown you all of the different areas that you're marked on. So you can see here that AO1, the first thing that you're marked on, is worth, sorry, 20% of your overall mark, your overall grade, and that's how you've managed the project all the way through from start to finish. So how have you kind of managed your time? How have you managed conversations with other people? How have you met with your supervisor? And how have you managed the presentation and the finished report? AO2 is worth 20% also, and that's how you've used your resources. So how have you researched, collated and selected information from a range of sources? So to do really well here, you've got to show that you've used not just one or two books for your research, but you've used a whole kind of a platter, if you like, of different areas and different places for your research. You've not just relied on one thing or one person's opinion. AO3 is the biggest in terms of weighting, that's worth 40%, and that's how you've selected and used a range of skills, including appropriate technologies, etc. So how have you gone about writing your presentation? How have you gone about writing your finished report? What have you learned along the way? And how have you overcome perhaps any issues that you hadn't seen coming. So if there's perhaps a problem with the reliability of a source, or you thought you would have access to a particular thing and then you found out that you didn't, it's about how you've overcome those hurdles basically, and how you've developed, and how you've developed as a student on the course of this. Finally, AO4 is worth 20%, and that's how you've reviewed your outcomes and drawn your own conclusions. So how have you reacted as a student to what you've read and researched? How have you come to your own conclusions, and how have you sort of synthesized, if you like, or evaluated everything, and how have you presented it? So that really is how it's assessed, but that's, like I say, across the whole 9 months, across the whole process. And I thought it was worth putting this in here just to give you an idea of the difference perhaps between an A star grade and a C grade project. By all means, pause the video here and have a read through the different descriptors, but that really is what the exam board AQA are looking for either an A star worthy project or a C grade project, and the different language that they use for either side, if you like. Okay, so in terms of timeframes, this is what we're looking to work with. So this won't encroach on year 11. This is purely for the end of year 9 and throughout year 10. So when students start their options subjects, or just before then, we'll meet with everyone who's keen to do the HPQ and wants to fulfil the HPQ. In probably May or June time, we'll begin learning how to research. So I will begin the taught skills section. I will teach those students how to research and how to go about a kind of healthy and ethical investigation. Students will then meet their supervisors. We already have a team of teachers prepared to become supervisors, knowing full well what they need to do, and how best to be a supervisor. So that's when that will happen. July, then, the summer months towards the summer holidays, will be continuing to learn about how to use reliable and valid sources, and then piecing together their research project. So that's when you can narrow down your investigation, come up with your title along with your supervisor. I can have a look and sign it off, and then you can embark on your research. So that will be in the summer months before the summer holidays, and then you might choose, it might be that you've got time in the summer holidays or a particular opportunity whereby you might be visiting family, or you might be going somewhere on holiday, or a day trip or something that gives you the opportunity to do some research. And that might happen over the summer holidays. Then when we come back in September, you're going to gather all of your sources together. You're going to continue with your research, meeting with your supervisor probably once a week. You're going to build everything and gather everything together, get your production log together with your supervisor, and then start to build your presentation. So by Christmas time, hopefully you'll have most of your research together and you'll start to be building your own conclusions. January 2025, so January next year, you'll deliver your presentation along with everyone else doing the HPQ, and then you're going to work on your report. So bringing together all of your findings and piecing together your report along with your supervisor. And then April time 2025, so April next year, you'll be handing in your report to your supervisor for all of the supervisors and myself to get together and mark them and to see what you've produced. Okay, so that rounds off my introductory video for the HPQ. If you have any questions at all about the whole process, or any further questions that you'd like to ask me, my email address is up there in the top right hand corner. I'm Mr. Kane, of course. There's also the Instagram page, Van Dyke Media, that I run. You can contact me through there. I'm also in the process of making a Van Dyke HPQ Instagram page with further information available there as well. Other than that, thank you very much for watching, and thanks for showing an interest, and hopefully you'll be signing up. I will also be putting together a Google Forms for people to put down their student's name, the student's name, sorry, and the form group that they're in, the tutor group that they're in, and a potential investigation area. But they don't have to have that finalised yet, of course. But that is in the letter that's going out very, very soon. So thank you very much for listening. I shall speak to you all or see you all soon.